Hey there everyone, David here with your weekly mouthful of David video. Like usual, we'll start with the updates for the podcast. So first and foremost, if you haven't heard by now, you probably have, but if you haven't, we've started a Patreon for A Mouthful of History. Patreon is basically a service where you can give monthly donations to folks whose projects you like, and that allows them slash us to keep working on them. So for A Mouthful of History, Nick, Cameron, and I don't actually pocket the money that we get from Patreon. It goes toward our editor, Carolyn, who is wonderful, and it also goes toward basically maintenance and upkeep on the podcast. So if you can give, that'd be great. We have tiers of $1, $5, and $8 a month. So even $1 a month helps. And each of those levels just come with different benefits and stuff. So if you can, please help out. But if not, we're just glad you're here. Otherwise, our most recent episode is the one about the 1953 U.S. coup in Iran. If you've heard that one, great. If not, check it out. Our next one is going to be part of a series, actually. It's either going to be 3 or 4. We're trying to see how much we can trim it down, but it'll be about the Algerian War for Independence. So be on the lookout for that. Other than that, we'll get into this week's video. It's been a little bit of a hectic time, so I figured I'd just kind of do a low-key one that I kind of, personally find fun in a dorky way to do, more book recs. So we are closing out on Women's History Month, and I figured, having already shared some books about women's history in general, why not recommend 5 biographies? So I have 5 biographies of pretty cool women here. One is Lucy Parsons. Sorry, I know it's backwards, but hopefully you'll at least recognize the cover. It's Lucy Parsons, An American Revolutionary by Carolyn Ashbaugh. And so Lucy Parsons, really interesting story. She was born to parents who either themselves had been enslaved or it was their parents who had been enslaved, but she was a black woman who became a prominent organizer for a labor org called the IWW, the International Workers of the World, who were basically a collection of labor unions. And the idea was that, instead of having just individual unions for different jobs, you would have one basically big tent union. And that's what the IWW is still today, but really was, especially back then when it was kind of having more of its heyday in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And Lucy Parsons was, one of its most noteworthy members. And she has actually been talked about by different people from history in an interesting way. The Chicago police said she was more dangerous than 1,000 rioters. So definitely an amazing woman to read up on. That, again, is Lucy Parsons. An American Revolutionary by Carolyn Ashbaugh. And I'll put the descriptions of the books in the video description. So next is A Woman Unafraid, The Achievements of Frances Perkins. And this is by Penny Colman. And Frances Perkins is very cool because she was FDR's Secretary of Labor. And she actually served all of his terms. So she, along with a couple others, were, or rather are, still considered the cabinet members to have been in the cabinet of their presidents for a long time. That part, not as cool as her actual achievements. She was basically one of the main architects for the New Deal. She herself was not from the labor movement, but she worked closely with and respected them. And she, again, was like a big architect of the New Deal. And she was also an opponent of some of FDR's less, good policies, such as Japanese American internment. So, really incredible woman, cool to read about. Next is My Life, My Love, My Legacy by Coretta Scott King. And Coretta Scott King, this is an autobiography. Coretta Scott King was Martin Luther King Jr.'s wife / widow after he was murdered. But she wasn't just his wife. She was, in her own right, a really prominent and really active civil rights leader. And she continued doing a lot of really great work even after MLK had been assassinated. And so, she really did what she could to carry that torch and, just make the world a better place. So definitely check that out. Going to another autobiography is Assata, an autobiography by Assata Shakur. And Assata Shakur was a member of the Black Panther Party. She was just a really, radical, independent woman from that time period. And she is just incredibly worth talking about. I don't even know what I can say as a kind of lead up. But check out her autobiography. It is fantastic. Finally, The Country Under My Skin by Gioconda Belli. We're getting a little international with this one. This one is a memoir, basically, of a woman who came from the upper classes during the dictatorship in Nicaragua under Anastasio Somoza. And she was a poet, a writer, and a revolutionary for the Sandinistas in Nicaragua. Fighting against the U.S.-backed Contras that were trying to restore the Somoza dictatorship after the Sandinistas overthrew it. It's a fantastic book, and because she's a writer, it's not only informative and interesting the way the other biographies on this list are, but hers is also just written with incredible prose. I mean, again, she's a writer and specifically a poet, so her writing is beautiful. So those are the 5 books that could be worth checking out. I will once again put the information for them in the description of this video. With that said, thank you for listening, everyone. I hope you are inspired to check out at least one of these. Other than that, have a good week and catch y'all next time.